Okay, good morning. And I think we can start now while waiting the other to join, but I think it's important to be also on time. Thank you very much to be today with us for the 8th webinar of the HealthTech cluster in Luxembourg. I'm Francesca Borrelli from Lux Innovation, and I will like to remember that these webinars are developed for you, for the HealthTech ecosystem in Luxembourg, research and companies, mainly to help you in your research path. And the presentation today is like usual, so there will be our speaker who will present for around 30 minutes, and then there is time for you for putting your questions and to receive the answers. During the presentation, please remember to switch off your microphone because so there are no noise, and don't worry about the presentation and because it will be sent to all participants after the event, and also the recording will be online as usual on our website of the webinar of the HealthTech. So today I'm very pleased to welcome our speaker from Alzheimer Europe. The focus today is really to help you to understand how it works when collaborating with the Association of Patients. Alzheimer Europe is very well known, but if you don't know them very well, it's a non-profit, non-governmental organization. And one of its main mission is to give the voice to people with dementia and their carers and family. They are present all over Europe, and today we are very honored to have with us the director of the research, Angela Brascio, and the public involvement leader of Alzheimer Europe, Anna Diaz. So they will give us the presentation, and they will tell you more about stakeholder involvement and also people involvement. Now I think I can stop here, and I would like to give the floor to Angela and Anna. I don't know who speaks first. I will also remove my camera, so you have all the screen for them. And I think Anna or Angela, you can start sharing your presentation, which was there. Maybe Angela has a connection problem at the moment. We wait 1 minute more.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Can I just check that you can hear me okay? The internet
I can hear you okay, but I don't see you anymore.
All funny. Is everyone all right?
It's a bit of echo, Angie, and we don't see you at all. We see a white, kind of strange blank.
Yeah.
And you're no longer sharing slides.
Yeah, so I've taken off my camera. I'll try and share the slides again, and hopefully this will work. Can everyone hear me now properly?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Share the slides again. Apologies for that slight technical interruption. So you can see my slides now and hear me. You probably can't see me, but I'm just staying off camera in case the internet issues return. So first of all, I'd like to start by, and please just shout out if the audio goes weird, and I'll try and exit and rejoin. So I'd like to start by thanking Lux Innovation for organising the webinar. I hope it will be interesting and informative to you. So my name's Angie. I'm the Director for Research at Alzheimer Europe, and I'm joined today by my colleague Anna Diaz, who is the Public Involvement Lead for the organisation. And today we're going to share some examples of collaborative engagement with patient organisations, patients and carers in EU-funded research projects. So I thought I'd start by giving you a quick introduction to Alzheimer Europe. So I'm joining you from Findel today, which is where our offices are. So we're not far from the rest of you who are joining. You can see Luxembourg on the map there. And we're the umbrella organisation of 41 national Alzheimer's associations from 37 countries across Europe. And you can see the countries where we have members in the map in green. Our mission is to change policy, perceptions, and practice to improve the lives of people with dementia. And you can see on the slide some of our core goals. One of these, a very important one, is providing a voice to people with dementia and their carers. We also work with national and EU policymakers to make dementia a European priority. We do a lot of work on changing perceptions and combating stigma, which can blight the everyday lives of people affected by dementia. A new goal of our work plan is to raise awareness of brain health and dementia prevention. And we also do a lot of work on strengthening the European dementia movement. And this can be through capacity building, but also collaborative actions. And the final point, which I'm going to spend more time focusing on today, is around supporting dementia research. But I hope you'll see over the coming slides and with Anna that our approach to supporting dementia research is very much integrated and adds value to the other elements of our work. So I guess the question really is why engage with patient organisations? Why involve patients, carers, members of the public, our end users in innovation and in research? So a few weeks ago, I was at a meeting on Down syndrome and Alzheimer's disease, and I was really struck by an opening speech by Katy Trias, who is the CEO of the Catalan Down Syndrome Foundation. And I'm just going to read her quote because it really resonated. And she said, "Behind every data point and research objective lies a person with unique experiences and needs. We must remain grounded in their reality. Let us not lose sight of the humanity at the core of our research, ensuring that our efforts uphold the dignity and well-being of those we seek to help." So, as many of you will be aware, close collaboration with diverse stakeholders has established itself as a really important practice in research and innovation. It can increase the relevance, acceptability, and the credibility of outcomes, and ultimately can help lead to more effective and sustainable solutions. As you can probably understand, in health research projects, those stakeholders, key members of those stakeholder groups, include patients, caregivers, and patient organisations like ourselves. And through early and meaningful involvement of us and the people we support, and by taking into account the first-hand experience of living with conditions or health issues, projects can achieve more patient-centred outcomes with greater credibility and acceptance, and also devise sustainable pathways to implementation and impact, which are really grounded in the real-world stakeholder experience. Those of you who follow funding proposals and some of the calls for funding as closely as we do might have realised that in recent years the European Commission has really actively been promoting the participation of patient groups and associations in EU-funded projects, really recognising patient and public involvement as an important factor for achieving those patient-centric outcomes and results. Many calls now emphasise the value of this, and some calls and funding bodies such as the Joint Programme on Neurodegenerative Disorders have taken this one step further. They actually include a mandatory section on patient and public involvement in their second stage proposals. So I think there's really an acknowledgement of the value that collaboration can bring, and hopefully in the next few slides we'll be able to convince you of the importance and also show you a path to practically engage with patients, patient organisations and carers. So I'm focusing at the moment and today on the work of Alzheimer Europe in research projects, but I'd like to emphasise that we're far from being the only patient organisation that supports research and innovation. Obviously, we're very focused on the dementia area, but you can see from this slide some of the many European patient organisations that focus on a wide range of health conditions. So you can see there, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, heart diseases. And there are also umbrella organisations. So the European Patients Forum, sort of top left there, is one of these organisations. So as is Eurordis, the European Rare Diseases Europe Foundation, and they cross a range of disease areas. And in addition to this, so this is only a fraction of the patient organisations at EU level, there are also vast numbers of national patient associations. So there's really, I think, an opportunity here. There's a drive from the funders, but also an opportunity and a desire from the patient organisations to participate in research. So we would very much encourage you to reach out to these organisations if you're interested in engaging and involving patients, carers, and the public, because they really bring huge expertise and experience in the real world from their particular fields. So turning back to Alzheimer Europe, we participate in EU-funded research projects in a range of different ways. So a core contribution, which Anna is going to spend a lot more time explaining, is the public involvement activities and patient advisory boards. And this ensures that research reflects the perspectives, needs, and values of people affected by dementia. On the stakeholder engagement front, and this is maybe somewhere, a lot of the time when we're approached by organizations, companies, consortia, this I think is where their mind first turns to, and then to public involvement, but also to communications. We can leverage our networks and organize regular meetings with our member organizations and policymakers. So this really supports your collaborative engagement with some of the most important stakeholders in Europe. In the last 5 years, we've also worked with researchers to identify, discuss, and address ethical and policy challenges. So these are really practice-based issues that might impede implementation of your innovations in the real-world context. And finally, we leverage our own communication channels as well as developing project-specific channels to help raise awareness and engagement with your research or with your innovations by those key audiences and stakeholders. This is us. So as I mentioned, we're based in Luxembourg. So we're all, well, currently I'm sitting in our offices, which are in Finland. I think there's about 10 of us in the offices today. So I mentioned sort of 4 buckets of activities, and you can see there the different team members that are focused on those different types of activities. But I'd also highlight the team that really drive and inform and support all of the work that we do in supporting EU-funded research. So Jean-Georges is the Executive Director of Alzheimer Europe and is a Luxembourger born and bred. And you can see there members of the team that are responsible for finances, for communications, for organising our annual conference, and for supporting communications and other administrative aspects of the work that we do. And here just a slide with some of the research projects that we're currently collaborating in, and just highlighting really the diversity of types of research and areas of research that we are currently supporting. And if you speak to colleagues at EPF and other organisations, they will often support a really wide range of projects. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking of how can I engage? What should I engage on? Just, approach us and have a chat. There's a really wide range of different ways we can engage with different types of projects, ranging from more sort of AI focused projects. So Addis and PatternCog in the top right hand corner, those are projects that are really leveraging AI for improved detection, diagnosis and care. But we also collaborate on platforms that are more about supporting research and supporting neuroscience research as well. So eBrain Health, for example, is really looking at using AI-based techniques to develop digital dementia twins or digital twins for dementia, whereas EPND is a platform project to support data and sample sharing across disease areas. So it's not just dementia, it goes through to Parkinson's and a lot of different neurodegenerative disease areas. On dementia screening, diagnosis and management, we have a couple of innovative health initiative projects that have recently kicked off. So Prominent and AD Riddle, but also Predictom. And then projects that are more focused on dementia risk reduction and brain health include Lethe and Multi-Memo. And just a quick note about funding bodies. So the projects on this slide are funded through Horizon Europe, the Innovative Medicines Initiative, the Innovative Health Initiative, but also through the Fonds National de Recherche, through the JPND and other programs. And we engage with them either as full partners, as subcontractors. So there are very many different ways to collaborate with organizations such as Alzheimer Europe. So what does this look like in practice? To start, I'm going to talk a little bit about stakeholder engagement. And then I'm going to hand over to Anna to talk more about public involvement, which is a really important element of the work that we do. So in the introduction, I mentioned some of the stakeholders or key stakeholders for research and the importance of stakeholder engagement to really pave the way for effective implementation and impact. So to give you a bit of history about our organisation, Alzheimer Europe was founded over 30 years ago, and it was founded by 9 national Alzheimer's organisations. And the founding statement or the founding mission statement was, because we're all satisfied that we will benefit from European cooperation, and together we can put more pressure on the European Council, Commission, Parliament and other national and supranational organisations, we have decided to form a European Alzheimer organisation. So perhaps a bit less grand than the Schuman Declaration that founded Europe, but it still gives you an idea of the fact that we were founded in a spirit of collaboration, and we really try to bring this to companies, to research, to innovative research projects. So in the 3 decades since Alzheimer Europe was created, the organisation has set up a wide network of stakeholders, and these include national policymakers, as well as representatives from health, social affairs and other ministries. And you can see the European group of governmental experts on dementia on the left-hand side. Apologies. So Jean-Georges, our executive director, is on the far left, and you can see there representatives from many different national health ministries, amongst others. We also currently have the European Alzheimer's Alliance, which is at the moment in flux because obviously the European elections are just around the corner. So currently that alliance of European MEPs comprises 97 MEPs from a wide range of different parties, countries, and these individuals have all signed the Dementia Pledge, which means that they are committed to supporting and ensuring that dementia remains a European priority in their actions in Parliament. And as I mentioned, at the moment, we're re-establishing the European Alzheimer's Alliance. We're currently, I think, at 67 pledges, and we hope to grow that much, much more in the coming months. So one of our most important group of stakeholders are our member associations. So these are national Alzheimer's associations from 37 different countries across Europe. And you can see a picture of the representatives there from our conference in Bucharest, actually in 2022. And these really represent a crucial touch point with the societal realities that are facing people who are affected by dementia. And we involve or engage with them in most of our activities, including our research projects. And we organise regular meetings where we can bring researchers together, companies together with these experts by experience and these member associations and other stakeholder networks. And you can see in the right panel some images from some recent meetings. So we recently had a European Parliament reception earlier this year, about a month ago, where we launched the Dementia Pledge. And now you can see a room in the European Parliament where we brought together MEPs, our member associations and our working groups. There are 2 pictures of our annual conference. So the pictures there were from our Helsinki conference last year in October. I think we had just under 1,000 registrants there, and you can see some different panels. There's a lot of engagement. I mean, I'm completely biased, but I think our conferences are really unique because, you know, they've been designed really purposefully to bring together researchers who are experts in their areas, not just researchers at the sort of forefront of fundamental science and innovation, but also psychosocial researchers, individuals who are really working in the care, social and health sectors, as well as policymakers and representatives of member associations. And just before I hand over to Anna, I'm going to finish by walking you through one of the stakeholder meetings that we organised in the context of 2 projects, which are led by the same PI, Petra Ritter from Charité in Berlin. These projects are called Virtual Brain Cloud, which is now finished, and then eBrain Health. So that's an ongoing Horizon Europe funded project. And a commonality between both of these projects, beyond the fact that they're both led by the same person, is that they are leveraging AI to develop new tools for studying the brain and eventually, hopefully, to help stratify patients for personalised medicine. And something that we realised in discussion with a lot of these projects is that they're faced with I guess, barriers when it comes to implementation that span a lot of different areas and require input from many different stakeholders. So for this particular lunch debate, which was organised in Brussels about a year and a half ago, you can see the agenda there. So they're 1.5-hour meetings. They're really a space for raising awareness, but also there is time in and around this meeting for discussions and really getting feedback from a broad range of stakeholders. So for our lunch debates, they're always chaired, led by members of the European Alzheimer's Alliance of MEPs. So there you can see Sirpa Pietikainen, Deirdre Clune of Ireland, and then Tilly Metz, who's a Luxembourgish MEP, joined this meeting. The research in Virtual Brain Cloud and eBrain Health was presented by the project coordinator. And then we also invited representatives from the European Medicines Agency. So Jesper Kjær, who co-chairs the Big Data Steering Group, although I think he's moved on now back to the private sector. And also Andrzej Riesch, who was the Director for Health Products and Services at DG Santé. and also a representative of a civil society organisation that's really focused on awareness raising, engagement and data sharing. So I hope you can get a feel there for the type of events that we organise, but also the fact that we organise them in a really mindful way, really trying to bring together some of the key stakeholders. And this provides an opportunity for projects and for companies and for organisations not only to develop a whole host of materials to show that they are mindfully engaging these stakeholders, but also it provides a platform and a forum for discussion. So with that, I will hand over to Anna to talk a little bit more about public involvement. And obviously after this, I'm very happy to take any questions you might have. Anna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Angie. And I would like to start by thanking Francesca and Lux Innovation as well for the very kind invitation to be here today. Angie has been already very nicely introducing the topic that I'm going to be focusing on the rest of the presentation. And this is around what we call public involvement in dementia research. Can you, next slide, Angie, please? Next. Yes. So you have been hearing already the term public involvement. So I wanted first to make a bit of explaining what public involvement means. And some of you might be more familiar perhaps with the term patient and public involvement. Public involvement is about research which is carried out by with and by members of the public rather than to, about, or for them. And this is a term that was coined a number of years back in the UK by the organization Involved. What this means is typically involving members of the public. And when we talk about members of the public, as opposed to professionals, we talk about lay people. So people who are either affected by the condition, that would be people with dementia or informal carers, but also it could be people with an interest in dementia, for example, older people with a higher risk of developing dementia in the future, or people who have been involved in kind of prevention research for dementia or similar initiatives. And it's involving these lay people, these members of the public, in working together with researchers and sharing their perspectives, their experiences, and the needs regarding the research topic, the design, and the conduct of the study. And I want to make here a very short break and try to explain as well. This is not about participating in research. So you might all think, of course, we involve people with dementia or other people from the public in our research as participants. This really means involving the lay people in designing your research, when you are conducting your research, when you are developing the different documents and information that you are going to be sharing with the future participants. So it's kind of sitting at the table with members of the public. And there are many, many reasons in the literature. It's not something that we do in dementia. Is public involvement is happening in many other health conditions. So there's many different reasons in the literature about why public involvement should be carried out. One of them, Andy was already mentioning, is because involving people who have first-hand experience of living the condition that we are researching, or when we are developing a product for an innovation, for example, it can really improve the research process and the outcomes. So it can really help the research or the product more meaningful, more valuable, and more relevant to the people who will be the final users or the final recipients of our interventions. There's also as well, it can provide knowledge that might be otherwise missing or overlooked, because this is the lived experience. So what is relevant for people, things that perhaps the researchers, we are not considering a different perspective, something that researchers might not consider otherwise. And finally, and not less important, is about giving voice to people about research which is relevant to them and their lives. So it's about the right to be involved in research that is going to affect them, their life and their condition. Next slide, Angie. And what I wanted to do today is to explain to you how at Alzheimer Europe we have been doing public involvement. So what's our approach? And the first thing I wanted to highlight is this is not something that we have been doing for a couple of years or a couple of months. This is something that takes time. So we started the public involvement work in 2012, so almost 12 years now. And that was when we set up our first working group, and this was the European Working Group of People with Dementia. And you can see the group. I think Angie also mentioned the word in her slides, and also mentioned them a couple of times. You can see on the photo on the top. This was in a very recent meeting in Brussels, the same Angie was referring to at the Parliament. So this is our current group of people with dementia, and it is composed of 15 people who have a diagnosis of dementia, different type of dementia. Some of them have Alzheimer's disease, some of them have frontotemporal dementia, Lewy bodies, so different type of dementia, and they are coming from different European countries. And they work with us in advising the organization, Alzheimer Europe, but as well researchers and research projects on different topics. Then, in addition to the European Working Group of People with Dementia, we very recently, in 2022, so 2 years back, we also set up a similar group, and this is the European Dementia Carers Working Group. So this is the second photo that you can see in the slide, the one on the bottom, and this is a group of informal carers, so relatives of people with dementia. We have as currently 13 countries, 13 different people represented in the group, and in the same is people who are currently providing care to a person with dementia, or who provided care in the 3 years prior to joining the group. And finally, in addition to involving people with dementia, informal carers of people with dementia, we also recently noticed that many of the projects, many of the initiatives where we are involved, they're also related to brain health, to people prior to have a diagnosis, people who are at a higher risk, people who might develop dementia in the future. And based on that, we also developed some advisory boards which are specific to some of the projects, and who are composed of people who are at risk, so people who do not have any cognitive impairment or very mild cognitive impairment, but who have as well an interest in participating in dementia research, particularly because a concern of potentially developing dementia in the future. So this is the who do we involve, but also it's very important to talk about the model, the principle and the values of the work that we have been developing. And I think one important thing that we often discuss with researchers, when often we meet researchers that have never heard before about public involvement, one of the main things is to say there's nothing wrong or right. So there is no one recipe or wrong or right approaches. There are many different ways and possibilities about how to involve people with dementia, carers, or other members of the public in your research and innovation. But there are some principles and values that have really worked for us. And these are the ones that I'm highlighting in the slide. The first principle, and I think one of the more important ones, even if it looks a bit self-evident, is activities have to be carefully planned. So that is not just to sit in a table with a few people with dementia. It typically involves to do a lot of work with the researchers prior to the meeting, to prepare some background information for the people participating in the consultation, to make sure the questions are appropriate for the people, to think about the question how we are going to facilitate so that the people involved in the consultation are really at ease and can meaningfully participate. But it also has to be timely. So often, for example, we have sometimes companies or projects approaching us and asking, can we have a consultation with your group of people with dementia? And then they have something that's fully developed. And then it's very nice to have this conversation, but none of the suggestions or feedback can be implemented because the decision has been already made. So even if it's a very nice interaction, there's no opportunities for real impact or change. So it's ideally think the involvement should be at the beginning or at the point where any feedback, any comments, any suggestion can be taken into account. And in making this carefully planned and timely, we normally are going to meet the third principle, and it has to be everyone involved has to be meaningfully involved. So it's not a tick the box exercise. It's really to try to listen and to understand what are the concerns and what are the suggestions and how they can contribute to our work. A second point I wanted to bring, because this is a question that we are very often asked, is about representation. We're not thinking about representation or representativeness as we do in research. This is public involvement. What we try to bring is diversity of voices, to bring many different voices, many different perspectives, to try to understand if we're developing a product, if we are thinking about a protocol for a research project, if we are developing an information sheet, what somebody at the other side with a lay person, how they will receive that, what will be the challenges, will it be accessible to people, will it be easy what we're asking them to do for them to follow everything, and we try to bring as many views as possible. And this is, for example, we often say in the groups, in the meetings, that we don't expect everyone to agree on anything, and it's very good and very healthy to disagree on different points. And the main idea is not to have a final solution to say, oh, this is what you need to do, but actually to discuss with researchers different concerns, different possibilities, and different perspectives that can help them to anticipate and to really support participants or users of the technology in the future. Another very important point is, of course, we are involving people with cognitive problems, people with dementia, and of course, then therefore, you're going to very easily understand the next 2 bullet points is that we need to adapt and accommodate to the individual interests, preference, and abilities. So we really need to provide support when needed. We really need to make every material and all the conversations accessible and adapted to people who are lay people and who do not have any technical knowledge about the topic we are discussing. So it's our responsibility to present things in a really understandable matter and in a way that people can engage in a conversation about the topic. And finally, but not least important, this is one for me of the key principles, is that we need, and this is the key of the success, we need to build and maintain mutually respectful relationships between the people with dementia, the care, the people at risk, and the researchers. And this is where these conversations are honest and open, and we can have these meaningful engagements. Angie, next slide, please. And I wanted to bring 2 specific examples. Angie has already mentioned Multi-Memo. Eurofingers is a project that was finalized in 2023. Both are projects who have been received funding and support from the FNR here in Luxembourg. And both are under the FINGER umbrella. FINGER is an initiative about dementia prevention, so how to reduce the risk of developing dementia in the future. And in that case, we work through an advisory board composed of many different people around Europe. We have been able over the 4 years since Eurofingers and now Multi-Memo started to involve around 20 people from Europe, like people with many different and very broad profiles, people who are just with some very mild cognitive impairment, but also healthy people with no cognitive problems, but who are aging and who have been concerned about dementia because they have relatives in their families or for other issues. And also we involve people with dementia and cares. And what we did is we had regular meetings that Eurofingers started in the middle of COVID, at the very beginning of COVID. So the meetings that we had regularly between the researchers and the advisory board, you can see the first picture there was online. We did use a lot of Zoom meetings. And we are very lucky last year to be able to meet in person as well in Luxembourg. And you have there two photos of the event that we hosted here in Luxembourg with some of the members of the advisory board and some of the researchers interacting and discussing in various meetings. And I really wanted to bring that because I think it's nice to see people in action. It brings a different perspective of what you can have in these meetings, I suppose, the static kind of photographs of people just standing. And then as well, I wanted to have another photo. You can see the last one at one very relevant conference, AIIC, that was in the Netherlands, where we actually brought 3 members of the advisory board, and they were also presenting about their experience and how they have worked with us in collaboration with this project. Key issues here, we have a lot of support. We have members from many, you can see from the countries, Finland, Sweden, Spain, UK, Netherlands, Hungary, and Luxembourg. We have a lot of local support. We needed people to have a minimum of English to understand, but also we had a lot of support from the researchers, local researchers, supporting members if they need any translation, any support from expressing their views. There was a lot of reciprocity. That means that we asked members why they wanted to join, what motivated them, and one reason was to learn more about brain health. And we are doing regular educational events where we also provide back to them information about brain health and dementia and things that are relevant for them and for their lives. And finally, as well, respect, in the sense of always trying to be, during the meetings, to promote a respectful relationship, to really take everyone's view on the same level, but as well later on, if we have any, for example, article about the work that we are doing, to really mention and acknowledge the work of the members. And finally, joining efforts, as you see here, 2 different projects trying to combine the advisory boards and learning from each other rather than working silos and each of the projects having similar or duplicating similar work. Next slide, Angie. And then I wanted to also have a quick reflection about how can that be relevant for the research, the people involved and the researchers. And I think first from the beginning, we discuss topics that are relevant for the researchers and the project itself. For example, we have been discussing around terms and terminology that we use in brain health, about when and how and what context to use prevention or risk reduction or brain health, what that brings to people's minds, how is more mindful to use the different terms and with which people. We, in some projects as well, have been reviewing a lot of the participant-facing materials, for example, information sheets or consent forms. We have provided feedback and advice on technology that was to be used in the study, like when they were using different devices for the study, what were the requirements, what might be the problems people might face, what kind of support participants might need. And finally, but not less important, discussion about possible ethical and social implications, things like privacy or sharing data, and things like that are also very important when talking about technology, or as Angie was mentioning, artificial intelligence. And this is very important for the members and the researchers. The members, for example, often talk about it brings them hope to be participating in this advisory board. It kind of makes them trust more the research that conducting for them. It brings them value. Sometimes when you have dementia, you're no longer an active member of society, so it brings them value and meaning and as well joy. And for the researchers, there's many different statements, but I wanted to as well have a very short video clip, one of the researchers here in Luxembourg. And if Angie, could you click on the clip, please?
Hang on. Let me just try that again.
Does it work?
Okay, can you see it?
No.
Okay, I think don't worry, because anyway we sent the presentation. They can see it. Okay, thanks.
Excellent. So that's one of the researchers saying basically this kind of the work for the advisory board is the compass for the researchers, and they really keep them grounded to what they have to say. A bit of similar to what Angie was mentioning at the beginning of her speech. Next slide. And I just wanted to finish my presentation. Of course, if there's any questions, you can, as Angie was mentioning, contact us at any point. But as well for you to know, there's a lot of resources available for dementia and as well for the conditions. The ones on the slides are specific to dementia. In our website, there's a lot of information, articles, and different information, academic information about public involvement. And also we have a lot of videos that we have been recording with members of the public, so some of the people involved, people with dementia, people from advisory boards, and as well from the researchers' perspectives. So I think there's a lot of resources available if you are interested. And of course, please, we'll be really happy if any of you like to continue the conversation, just contact us and we'll be more than happy to have a chat about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Angela. Very interesting presentation. I think now, before we go to questions, I would just like to ask all of you if you can switch on your camera, those that want. We take a quick picture and then we move on with the question for those of you that are, of course, wishing. It's not mandatory, but we take a quick picture and then we move on. Okay. Thank someone still going back and forward. Thank you so much. And now we can move on. We have 10 minutes for a little bit more also for all your questions. You can write in the chat, or you can take put on the speaker and the microphone, and you can speak and ask whatever you want to Angela and Anna. Sorry. Anyone wants to take the floor? Okay, then I go first, I think, and then we are waiting. Thank you. I think there are two very different aspects that you cover today. So one is to be present, at the policy level to make it very clear which are the important needs of patients and and to put these policies forward. And another one that is maybe more linked to the needs of our health tech ecosystem here, it's how to bring on patients and patient organization to discuss our research with them. And this is more a question maybe I would like to ask Anna. So if we understand that you don't have to bring a technology which is already 100% developed, and I think this is the case of a lot of companies here. They have good prototype, but of course they are not well developed. What would be your advice, that they involve with the organization like you, or it's better that each company develops its own advisory board? You know, bring on a group of people that can help them from the beginning until the end of their technology?
That's a very good question, Francesca. And I think I have experience with both. So in some cases, I know some companies have a specific panels or advisory boards or group of people who they know, and they do a lot of user testing or the other kind of means. And this is very nice. And I think that's a very okay way to go about it. But I think also often you cannot have these panels for everything you're developing, or you might be a smaller company and you might not have the capacity, or you might not have the skills to see how to conduct this work. So then in that case, also I think it's very nice to reach out to existing groups. And in that case, I think that's the different place in the case, in the sense that if you reach, for example, in our case, we're very involved in projects which involve technology. We have been involved in many other projects. We have an existing group already. We have a bit of the understanding of how to prepare a document, how to facilitate meetings, and all the process. So I think it's not either. I think it's both are very valuable, and I think it depends on the actual company, the resources. Is it for a one-off? Is something they're going to do in the long term? So I will not go for choosing one of them. I think both are valid and depends on many other aspects. I don't know, Angie, you want to add something in that domain, Angie?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you've said. And, you know, I know that we've worked with companies. So the work we did with the company in Virtual Brain Cloud, for example, is very early on. So what they were doing is they were taking a technology which they developed for a different indication, and they were trying to adapt it for people who are living with dementia. So I think the value that, you know, clearly with what Anna said earlier, is really speaking to organizations such as ourselves, getting there early, just really trying to scope out the options, because I think, you know, someone like Anna, for example, and her team can really advise on the possibilities and the options, and also things that would realistically fit within your capacities and capabilities, whether it's budgetary or whether it's in terms of personnel and the questions that you'd like to address.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you cannot cover all, and budget it's also a very important topic. Okay, so now there is a Stefan Lübke that I think represents a company which is also looking to have some establishment here in Luxembourg. And so Stefan, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Francesca, for the kind introduction. Indeed, we're providing an AI-guided platform which transforms visual gestures into real-time language. And I would like to know in particular, as I saw in your presentations at 22 conference on AI, how do you see the role of data protection and the limitation of, in principle, helpful things? That is the first question, whether you could give me an up-to-date interpretation of your opinion or your position. And the second is, would anybody of the organizations here represented be interested becoming a member of an LC board of this little startup when we go to mobilize not only investors, but also patient organizations? So it would be good to have somebody who has an eye on what this little company, Parrots, is doing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, vielen Dank, Stefan. So I think there are two questions there. The first one is extremely difficult to answer because it's a huge challenge for a vast majority of the projects that we interact with. You know, the GDPR essentially data protection. And as you'll be aware as well, we have a brand new regulation that's also going to impinge and impede, maybe, hopefully not, which is the European Health Data Space Regulation. So I think what we interact with many different types of policymakers. A lot of the focus is really on EU level policymakers and the level at which a lot of these regulations are being decided. So in terms of, first of all, the easier answer, which is how do we, well, one question could be, how do we influence those processes? So at a policy level, you'll be aware maybe that there are consultations that happen with regard to these regulations and directives when they're being developed and when they're going through the negotiation stages, the trilogue negotiations at the EU level. So we're able, as a civil society organisation, to contribute our individual voices, but we're also part of an EU for Health Civil Society Alliance. So as a team, as a group, as a group of patient organisations, we do put forth our positions on some of these regulations, which do impede to a certain extent research and innovation. So it's something that it's a portfolio that we're keeping a very close eye on. And in fact, about 3 years ago, we issued a report on data sharing in dementia research. And one of the areas of challenge was really identified as the GDPR linked issues that cause hesitation when it comes to DPOs, data protection officers, and the ability to really leverage the strength of data that we have in Europe to create innovations that will benefit patients. So it's a huge problem, and it's one that we're really only chipping the surface of and that we're chipping away at as a patient organisation. But we're trying. And a lot of what we did in that data sharing project is that we spoke to some of our research collaborators and some of the researchers on the ground, really to get a view of their issues and the problems they're facing. And then we took that feedback and we brought it to the policymakers, really to highlight some of the challenges. So, whether it's a drop in the ocean or a sea in itself, it's hard to judge. But yeah, it's a work in progress, I'd say. And then in terms of participating as ELSI board members, we are, so as an organisation, various members in the organisation do join boards of companies, of projects, for pharmaceutical companies as well. So we do have an experience of acting as board members. I would say get in touch and we can explore the parameters. Obviously, it would need to be mutually beneficial, but we're very keen to support innovation. It's great to see it when it's in Luxembourg in particular. So, if that could be of interest and your platform sounds very interesting, just get in touch. I think Francesca should be able to share our contact details.
Thank you very much, all of
Anna,
you.
Anna, do you want to add anything maybe? You've sort of been on boards and advisory committees and stuff as well.
Oh yeah, I just was kind of thinking when Stefan was mentioning the AI guided platform, that this is a topic that we also have discussed often with the lay people, with the people with dementia and other boards, and it's something that's happening. I think something that AI is more and more in all our lives, and of course in health related devices and all part of our health is something that is there. So as well, I think awareness on the society is very important, that people are aware that it's something beneficial. And I think there's a bit of both concerns on the one hand, because it's something new, it's something difficult and challenging, and on the other side, excitement about the potential of AI and how this could really have a revolution in what we can do and how we can provide more support. So I think it's a bit of both sides, and as well, I think one of the key things that we hear anytime we talk about data protection and all these kind of topics, artificial intelligence, is trust. So I think that's a key element to work. I think the society is in kind of sensing that this is happening. Not everyone is well informed, but I think the word trust is something that we really need to work, and something to promote trust among the civil society, as among everyone. And that for me would be the key thing that I think comes, I think, Angie, again and again when talking to our members in many different parts and areas. But that would be my just summary.
Thank you for providing really a complete answer to this very important question that Stefan raised. Are there any other questions at the moment from the audience? I don't see raised hand. And yeah, Clarissa. Sorry, Clarissa. Please.
No worries. I was a bit delayed. Thanks, Francesca. I have a bit of different question. You mentioned reviews of participant-facing material, which is, I think, very, very important for research. And it's something we strive to get right as well. Are you also involved in discussions with ethical panels to involve the advisory boards and directly with the policymakers of the ethical panels in a way on how to guide them in their actions? For instance, a very practical point is, again, the open access and sharing of data within Europe. And if yes, how impactful and how, what's your experience? Thanks.
That's an excellent question, Clarissa. Something we have debated here within the team. We don't have any concrete experience of what you exactly describe, and is as involving people with dementia or carers with the members of an ethical board. But what we have done in some of the projects is work with the research team, who is preparing the ethical application. And what we have worked with them is trying to see which are the concerns and really put in the application, for example, when it has things like data protection, when it has to think about many of the technology has a lot of kind of challenges and concerns for people in terms of, is it invasive, is it at the house, is it involving other people? So we have these discussions, and we include this in the proposal for the ethical approval. And also often when there's a feedback from the ethical committee, we kind of reflect again, but not directly with the ethical committee. And this is an excellent point. We recently, in the context of an IHI project, Radar AD, published one article on a bit of the discussion about ethical committees and ethical procedures to gain ethical approval and our involvement. And it's a bit more marginal, as I'm explaining, but I think it's definitely a very interesting aspect. I think often there's a lot of difficulties around getting ethical approval for things that might be, by the public, not such a concern. And I think it's a very important and interesting discussion. If you have any further ideas about how to put this in practice or how, that would be very welcome. So if you want to in the future continue discussion privately, that would be really, really welcome, because it's definitely something we've been discussing in the last kind of year or so.
Thank you.
That would be great. Yeah, that we have some ideas. Maybe we could touch base.
Thank you all, and I thank you very much, Clarissa, and for the question, Stefan, and our speaker for the great answers. Our webinar is going to end, so we have to stop here our discussion. But of course, you are all most than welcome to continue by mail or with a phone call. And I really want to thank again Angela and Anna to be here today and to show how important it is and how crucial for the successful. We want to bring your technology to the market, but without you understand that. Without the involvement of the association and the patients, it is very, very challenging, if not impossible. So please, let's start this discussion. And now, finally, of course, you will get the presentation and the recording for those of you who were not available today. And I want to just quick remind of our next appointments. So very, very important. And I hope Angela and Anna, maybe one of you or one of your colleagues can participate. In 2 weeks, we will have the European Digital HealthTech Conference organized by Lux Innovation and other stakeholders, also IET Health. And it's here in Luxembourg. So 14 of May afternoon, 15 of May in the morning at the Chamber of Commerce in Luxembourg. And this is our key conference to support the health tech company to understand which are the challenges and which are the best path to bring technologies to the market, taking into account all this very complex environment today. And our com team is putting the links in the chat, so you can click directly. You need to register, it's free, but it requires registration. And the last information, next month in June, so May we will have the conference. In June there is no webinar, but there is a workshop. It's here at Lux Innovation in present, and it's also very important because it's the Institute de la Propriété Intellectuelle of Luxembourg, IPIL, that will present also here, which are the important aspect of intellectual property protection, and they will, and it's very, very important that because the two speakers will also show that there are some financing available within the European Union's ME Fund 2024, and show how these for SMEs this cost can be partially funded. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks, Angela, thanks, Anna, and to all the people that came to listen to this talk. And I hope we can meet again at the conference and in other settings, continue our discussion. Thank you so much.